Hello again, this is Livy McDonald, again, here on my channel. Welcome. This is my second audio upload. I am reading from various magazines that I'll introduce as this recording goes on. The first magazine is Esquire. This is an article from October 5th, 2023. 13 terrifying but true horror stories reported in the news. From fatal exorcisms to unexplained deaths and devil worship, these are some real-life nightmares. I'm sorry, I'm cutting right to the first story. There's an intro. The Enfield Monster. In 1973, a man in Enfield, Illinois, told reporters that he saw a weird little creature lurking in his yard. Per the Mount Vernon Register-News, resident Henry McDaniel stated, "It had 3 legs on it, a short body, 2 little short arms, and 2 pink eyes as big as flashlights." The police later found scratches on the door screens and footprints that looked like a dog's, but with 6 toes. "If they do find it," McDaniel said in the newspaper, "they will find more than one, and they won't be from this planet, I can tell you that. To this day, no explanation has ever been found." Story 2. The Suicide Hotel. In Colombia, the Hotel del Salto has more stories as one of the most haunted places on earth, more than it does actual tenants. Turned into a museum, the hotel was designed by architect Carlos Arturo Tapias back in 1923, overlooking the Tequendama Falls. The views were said to be spectacular, but guests kept getting a little too close to the falls. Translated to Hotel of the Leap, the Hotel del Salto, salto meaning jump, by the way, is full of stories of people leaping to their deaths. According to local legend, the indigenous Muisca tribe escaped from Spanish colonizers by leaping off the cliffs some centuries before. Story 3. The Axe Murder House. The Villisca Axe Murder House in Villisca, Iowa, is a well-known tourist attraction for ghost hunters and horror lovers alike. The site of a gruesome unsolved 1912 murder in which 6 children and 2 adults had their skulls completely crushed by the axe of an unknown perpetrator was purchased in 1994, restored to its 1912 condition, and converted into a tourist destination. It costs $428 a night to stay at the old haunted home, where visitors always report strange paranormal experiences, such as visions of a man with an axe roaming the halls or the faint screams of children. But in November of 2014, the haunting took a darker turn. Robert Stephen Lornson Jr., 37, of Rhinelander, Wisconsin, was on a regular recreational paranormal visit with friends when true horror struck. Per Vice, it says, his companions found him stabbed in the chest, an apparently self-inflicted wound, called 911, and Laursen was brought to a nearby hospital before being helicoptered to Creighton University Medical Center in Omaha. The Montgomery County Sheriff's Office said Laursen suffered the self-inflicted injury at about 12:45 a.m., which is around the same time the 1912 axe murders in the house began. Laursen, his name is spelled Laursen, that's why I'm not saying Larson, recovered from his injuries but has never spoken publicly about what occurred that day. For Martha Lynn, the owner of the home, the incident was very upsetting. It's publicity, but it's not exactly the kind of publicity you desire to have. I don't want people thinking that when they come to the Villisca Axe Murder House, something's going to happen that's going to make them do something like that. The house remains open for tourist visits and overnight stays today. The Haunted Doll. Next story. I lost count. I'm sorry. When you think of haunted dolls, it's likely the creepy old Victorian-looking porcelain kind that springs to mind, none of which you probably have laying around. Still, don't get too comfortable around any kids' toys too soon, though. A Disney's Frozen Elsa doll that was gifted for Christmas 2013 in the Houston area made headlines earlier this year when it seemingly became haunted, 10 years later, from when it was purchased. Per per KPRC2 Houston News, it says, the doll recited phrases from the movie Frozen and sang "Let It Go" when a button on its necklace was pressed. For 2 years it did that in English, Mother Emily Madonia said. In 2015 it started doing it alternately between Spanish and English. There wasn't a button that changed these, it was just random. The family has owned the doll for more than 6 years and never changed its batteries. The mother says the doll would randomly begin to speak and sing even with its switch turned off. The family decided to throw the creepy doll out in December of 2019. Weeks later, they found it inside a bench in their living room. The kids insisted they didn't put it there, and I believed them because they wouldn't have dug through the garbage outside, Madonia told KPRC2 Houston News. At that point, Elsa ceased to sing the English rendition of Let It Go altogether, speaking only Spanish when pressed. The family then double-bagged the bizarre doll and placed it at the bottom of the garbage, which was taken out on garbage day. They went on a trip shortly after, but when they returned, Elsa too had come back and was waiting in the backyard of their home. This time the family mailed Elsa to a family friend in Minnesota who taped the haunted doll to the front bumper of his truck. It doesn't seem to have made its way back to Houston yet, as per Madonia's latest February Facebook update on the creepy doll. It's possessed by a spirit that wants to have experiences. I think, maybe. I'm no expert. I'm just surmising. A deadly exorcism. Next story. In August 2016, in North London, 26-year-old Kennedy Ife began acting strange and aggressive following a pain in his throat. He reportedly bit his father, threatened to cut off his own penis, and complained of a python or snake inside of him before his family restrained him to a bed with cable ties and excessive force. As the BBC reported, the family then set about attempting to cure Kennedy through restraint and prayer over the next 3 days, the court was told. His brother Colin Ife told police, "It's clear that thing was inside him, what we believed was a demon, because it was not natural. It was clearly trying to kill him," he said. "We had to restrain him for himself. It was clear if we didn't restrain him, he could have tried to harm people in our family." Kennedy Ife had been bound to his bed for 3 days without medical attention when his brother called emergency services, explaining that Kennedy Ife was complaining of dehydration. He appeared to have developed breathing issues and was pronounced dead at 10:17 a.m. As The Independent reported, while police were at the house, Colin Ife allegedly carried out an attempted resurrection by chanting and praying for Mr. Ife. All 7 of Kennedy Ife's family members were accused of manslaughter, false imprisonment, and causing or allowing the death of vulnerable adults. A post-mortem examination revealed over 60 wounds, including a possible bite on Kennedy Ife's body, and his father, Kenneth Ife, along with 4 of his brothers, sustained injuries as well. The BBC reported, Kenneth Ife told jurors he ordered his sons to take shifts and use overwhelming force, but denied that an association with cults, and secret societies played any part in the death. After a 4-day jury deliberation, all 7 family members were cleared of charges on March 14, 2019. Okay, well, I'm back again after my break. I think this is just how I'm going to be doing these voice recordings. I'm going to take breaks, and you're stuck with hearing that I'm taking breaks, even though, they don't show and I could avoid it. But I don't really know the proper way of taking a break, and then, because I think there's at some point going to be a significant difference from one day to the next, or days or hours or minutes or whatever. So when I'm taking a significant enough break, I'm going to have to say so. Hope your break was nice. Okay, dead animals in the walls. We're continuing with the Esquire magazine article. And strange things that have really happened. I have to turn off my notifications on my other phone, on my tablet. I hope you can't hear those. I'm new to this. Okay, dead animals in the walls. When the Bretzius family decided to insulate their home in Auburn, Pennsylvania in 2015, they discovered that it had already been with scores of dead animal carcasses. As Fox reported, the dead animals were wrapped in newspapers from the 1930s and 40s and were among half-used spices and other items. After removing the items, they sent hundreds of artifacts and carcasses to an expert in Kutztown. The expert attributed the rotting animals in their walls to powwow or Dutch magic, a ritual originating in the culture of the Pennsylvania Dutch to treat ailments and gain physical and spiritual protection. The Pennsylvania Dutch were a group of German-speaking settlers to Pennsylvania in the 1600s and 1700s and are often of Lutheran, Mennonite, or Amish faiths. The Washington Post notes on the magic, many of the spells deal with the care of livestock, finding water, or the treatment of minor ailments, reflecting the conditions and concerns of early American settlers. But powwow also has within it a tradition of darker spells and even of such things as conjuring demons. One notable ritual in their tradition is this hex to create loyalty in a dog. To attach a dog to a person, provided nothing else was used before that to affect it, try to draw some of your blood and let the dog eat it along with his food, and he will stay with you if he doesn't become a zombie and eat you. The mold found, and my voice recordings will be loaded with careless and reckless interruptions by myself. Yeah, but you know that. The mold found on the rotting carcasses in the Bretzius home has called. Let me start over. The mold found on the rotting carcasses in the Bretzius home has caused illness among the family members, and they say that the odor hasn't gone away. Florida devil worshipping. This is the next story. Friends noticed that Daniel Harkins, a 35-year-old school teacher near St. Petersburg, Florida, started acting strangely in June of 2012, developing an interest in demonic rituals. Soon after, she was arrested for abuse of 7 of her former students, as the Tampa Bay Times reported. Danielle Harkins told the kids they needed to rid their bodies of demons as the group gathered before dusk Saturday around a small fire near the St. Petersburg Pier. They should cut their skin to let the evil spirits out, police said she told the children. Then they needed to burn the wounds to ensure that those spirits would not return. That's a very old Indian ritual. I wonder if she was of Indian descent. When Harkins held a lighter to one teen's hand, wind blew the flame out, police said. That prompted her to douse his hand in perfume before setting it on fire. The boy suffered second-degree burns, police said. Another teen was cut on the neck. Well, she did it wrong, so that's no good. Another teen was cut on the neck with a broken bottle, police said. Harkins used a flame to heat a small key, which he then used to cauterize the wound. The police were notified because a friend of one of the students who participated in the ritual raised alarms. However, none of the students themselves told their parents about the event or would comment following the arrest of Harkins for aggravated battery and child abuse. NBC reported investigators said they've spoken to Harkins, but she didn't spell out what type of religion would require such drastic measures. Several cults of Wicca would. She hasn't informed us exactly what she was trying to accomplish with this, Putes of St. Petersburg Police Department said. You know, that's kind of sad because I'm not saying there was anything right about what she did under American terms, laws. That would be a cult, felony, and it was a cult felony, but it's possible the woman was just ignorant of some kind of cultural dissent. I'm sorry to say that, but it's possible. And was believing that she was introducing them to, culture, underworld culture, of course, but culture that was still current enough to post-American contemporary times that it was worth examining because it had affected a great deal of history and its outcome, the kind of things that you read in books. So possibly, but that's more like something that you would have signature for a college PhD, indulgence and internship in which rituals, if even that, and they're not school children. And of course, then she executed the rituals incorrectly, did not attempt to inform the school system. Of course, they would have shut her down anyway, didn't even try to lobby a point of use for special events of any kinds. And, it took no precautions even breaking the laws if she had gone that far. So that's what's really heinous about the whole thing is that she meant, probably just ignorantly trying to expose a cultural issue to the contemporary times so that, some history books seem more alive with intention of the horrors of the past and the meanings of misinterpreting, past customs for modern customs and all the changes that had to take place to be different in the New York Times. But as I say, she didn't even care that much about what she was doing. That's what's heinous to me. But I don't know. I don't think it would be all right with me if I was responsible for any children or any people or anybody that is just so recklessly careless and ignorant. I wouldn't know where to start condemning the whole practice. But it's kind of sad because I think, there are so many modern occult atrocities that happen. Even school systems could delineate a little bit more like infrastructure to an intellectual option, electives, other things, events, special courses, anything that not so much burn children or anything, but explain what rituals were about, like courses and rituals for younger children. Wouldn't be really such a bad idea if they were taught under proper care and not with executing, deadly principles. It's kind of sad overall, start to finish, but she meant harm. She meant some kind of vengeance to an ancient ritual, which is pretty sad. Okay, I've talked enough of that. The death of Eliza Lamb. Eliza Lamb was last seen on January 31st, 2013 in the lobby of the Cecil Hotel in downtown Los Angeles. She was vacationing through the West Coast, documenting the trip on her blog and checking in with her parents every day. On January 31st, those calls stopped. Lamb had vanished. Soon the police were involved, and her parents arrived to help with the search. They had nothing. That February, LAPD released elevator surveillance footage of Lamb before her disappearance. The footage shows Lamb behaving strangely in the elevator, appearing to talk with invisible people, peering around the corner of the door, crouching in the corner, and opening and closing the door. But what exactly is going on in this video raises more questions than answers. Theories range from psychotic episodes to demonic possession to unknown assailants just out of the camera's view. Around that time, hotel guests started reported weird things happening with the Cecil Hotel water supply, as seen on reports. The shower was awful, said Sabina Boa, who spent 8 days there during the investigation. When you turned the tap on, the water was coming black first for 2 seconds, and then it was going back to normal. The tap water tasted horrible, Boa said. It had a very funny, sweetie, disgusting taste. It's a very strange taste. I can barely describe it. But for a week, they never complained. We never thought anything of it, she said. We thought it was just the way it was here. The water was obviously contaminated, and it did something to her minds. On the morning of February 19, a hotel employee climbed to the roof and used a ladder to investigate the hotel's water storage tanks. That's where authorities found the decomposing... Oh, I'm wrong then. That's where authorities found the decomposing naked body of Lamb, whose personal items were found nearby. After an autopsy, her death was labeled accidental. Wow. NBC Los Angeles reported at the time about the strange circumstances in the hotel's past. The tank has a metal latch that can be opened, but authorities said access to the roof is secured with an alarm and a lock. The single-room occupancy hotel has an unusual history. Night stalker Richard Ramirez, who was found guilty of 14 slayings in the 1980s, lived on the 14th floor for several months in 1985. An international serial killer, Jack Unterweger, is suspected of murdering 3 prostitutes during the time he lived there in 1991. He killed himself in jail in 1994. In 1962, a female occupant jumped out of one of the hotel's windows, killing herself and a pedestrian on whom she landed. In February 2021, a Netflix document called Crime Scene: The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel explored Eliza's tragic case in the history of the cursed Cecil Hotel. No, so there was no tainted water that could have... I was trying to explain why she would have been psychotic in the elevator. Okay, I shouldn't jump to conclusions. An exorcism in Indianapolis. Last year, the Indianapolis Star published a lengthy report. I have never heard of that. Of the Lamb case in Los Angeles? No, I'm sorry. Last year, the Indianapolis Star published a lengthy report on a family terrorized by 3 children allegedly possessed by demons. The account of Latoya Ammons and her family tells disturbing stories of the children climbing up the walls, getting thrown across rooms, and children threatening doctors in deep, unnatural voices. It would seem like something straight out of a movie, a work of fantasy, except all of these accounts were more or less corroborated with nearly 800 pages of official records obtained by the Indianapolis Star and recounted in more than a dozen interviews with police, DCS personnel, psychologists, family members, and a Catholic priest. One of the more chilling sections of the report includes a segment about the possessed 9-year-old. According to Washington's original DCS report, an account corroborated by Walker, the nurse, the 9-year-old had a weird grin and walked backward up a wall to the ceiling. He then flipped over Campbell, landing on his feet. He never let go of his grandmother's hand. Another segment of the piece reads, the 12-year-old would later tell mental health professionals that she sometimes felt as if it were being, felt as if she were being choked and held down so she couldn't speak or move. She said she heard a voice say she'd never see her family again and wouldn't live another 20 minutes. Wow. Utah murder-suicide. In September of 2014, a Utah teen returned to his home to find his parents and 3 siblings dead. In a notebook, a to-do list had been scribbled on the pages. The list looked as if the parents were ready to go on vacation. Items such as feed the pets and find someone to watch after the house were written. The Salt Lake Tribune reported, it appeared to be murder-suicide, but there was no suicide note, no prior indication that they would do this, no explanation. Police could not figure out why 2 parents would kill themselves and 3 of their 4 children. For a year, no one knew exactly what happened to the family or what would drive the parents to do something so unthinkable. In January, police released more chilling details in the case. According to accounts from family members and an investigation by police, the parents were driven by a belief that the apocalypse was coming and an obsession with a convicted killer, as the Washington Post reported. Friends and family told police that the parents were worried about the evil in the world and wanted to escape a pending apocalypse. Apocalypse. Yes, you heard me say apocalypse. But most assumed that they wanted to move somewhere off the grid. Investigators also found letters written by Christy Strack to one of the state's most infamous convicted killers, Dan Lafferty, who was convicted in the 1984 fatal stabbing of his sister-in-law and her 1-year-old daughter. According to trial testimony, he killed the victims at the order of his brother, Ron Lafferty, who claimed to have had a revelation from God. The story became a book called Under the Banner of Heaven. Police said Christy Strack became friends with Dan Lafferty, and she and her husband even visited him in prison. So now I'm afraid of making assumptions, but I'm going to keep doing it. So she was seriously influenced by the occult leader, Lafferty. Okay. The phone stalker. In 2007, ABC News documented a series of cell phone calls to families with terrifyingly specific death threats. The unidentified callers knew exactly what families were doing and what they were wearing. The families say the calls come in all hours of the night, threatening to kill their children, their pets, and their grandparents. Voicemails arrive playing recordings of their private conversations, including one with a local police detective. The caller knows, the family says, what they're wearing and what they're doing, and after months of investigating, police seem powerless to stop them. This went on with the Quick-and-All family for months, who reported a caller with a scratchy voice threatening to slit their throats. I swear it wasn't me, though. I have a scratchy voice. When the Fircrest, Washington police tried to find the culprit, the calls were traced back to the Cook and Doll's own phones, even when they were turned off. Oh my gosh, that's scary. It got worse. The Cook and Dolls and 2 other Fircrest families told ABC News that they believe the callers are using their cell phones to spy on them. That's more than possible explanation. They say the hackers know their every move, where they are, what they're doing, and what they're wearing. The callers have recorded private conversations, the families and police said, including a meeting with a local detective. So sad. It's terrifying. The Watcher. After moving into their $1.3 million dream home, a New Jersey family started receiving creepy death threats from someone who identified themselves as the Watcher. As CBS News reported earlier this year, since moving in, the owners said they have received numerous letters from the mysterious person. The Watcher claimed, the home has been the subject of my family for decades, and I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming, Castro reported. Wow. The new owners have several children, and other letters asked, have they found out what's in the walls yet? And I am pleased to know your names now and the name of your young blood you have brought to me. This is what the, phone stalker had been saying to his family. The family was forced to flee from their home and later filed a lawsuit against the previous owners. Isaiah the cannibal. This is the last story in this group. In 1974, 24-year-old Waco University student Isaiah Sagawa allegedly followed a German woman to her home in Tokyo, Japan, broke into her apartment while she was sleeping, and attempted to cut a piece of flesh off of her body to consume. When she awoke, she reportedly fought him, and he was later captured by the police. According to a 2012 Vice documentary that covered Isaiah's bizarre story, he was mistakenly charged with attempted rape, and his wealthy father paid the victim a settlement outside of court to have the charges dropped. 7 years later, in 1981, he allegedly committed a murder in France, shooting and eating a fellow university student, René Hardeveld. Isay creepily documented the entire experience with photographs, and he was captured by authorities once again while attempting to dump the rest of her body in the Bois de Boulogne lake. He was deported back to Japan and committed to a mental institution. For reasons unknown, his psychologists in Japan declared that he was sane. Furthermore, a legal technicality involving the French government refusing to turn over the documents from his case meant that his murder charges were dropped completely. He checked himself out of the mental hospital and has reportedly been walking the streets as a free man ever since. Isay has even become a controversial celebrity, writing over 20 books. According to Japan Today, he most recently fantasized about an unnamed TV actress, saying, "I'll catch a glimpse of her thigh and think, that sure looks tasty, but I don't feel like I actually want to eat it. As I accomplished the act of cannibalism once, there's no meaning to maintaining the desire for it anymore." In my book, I wrote that human flesh, was tasty, but it wasn't really true. I'd much rather eat Kobe beef. But because I desired to consume human flesh for so long, I'd managed to convince myself that it would necessarily be delicious. Issei Sagawa was also referenced in the Rolling Stones song Too Much Blood, with the lyrics reading, "And when he ate her, he took her bones to the Bois de Boulogne." He is currently 73 years old and continues to live in Kawasaki City, Japan. To this day, no one knows why France did not allow Japan to give him a trial. Okay, that's the end of the Esquire magazine article that I was going to read you. That was called, I forgot the exact, 13 Terrifying but True Horror Stories Reporting It in the News. Terrifying, macabre, sad, scary, surprising, shocking. I am going to be taking another break and trying to decide what next group of articles. I think I'm going to read Women Share Their Terrifying Stalking Stories. So let me see how long this first story is. It's a little bit long. I was going to start it. It's from the magazine Mink, which you don't hear from often. I just happened to find it. All right, I'll be back. Thank you for listening. All right, so my break time is over. A couple of days have passed. And as I had said earlier, I'm going to be reading from Mink magazine, Women Share Their Terrifying Stalking Stories. This is an article from November 25th, 2020, 5 years ago. First one is, no hard feelings. I was legitimately stalked my first semester of college. The guy was in my same English class, second or third week. We talk a little after class and find out that we live in different dorms, but in the same complex. Now, the dorms were towers, 17 floors, with 35 or so rooms per floor, huge buildings. One day, him and his roommate show up at my door, except I never told him which floor I lived on. So he had to go to each floor and try to find me. He then proceeds to come into my room while my roommate and I are doing work and lays on the floor. Finally, his friend tells him he's being weird and that they should go. Then he started just sitting outside my dorm room. I would come back from class and he would be there just sitting and waiting. He would leave notes on the whiteboard that he just wanted me to read his essay for class. He just wanted to talk to me. Why wouldn't I give him a chance? He then started sending me creepy song lyrics over MySpace about how he was going to burn down the dorm to get me to have to leave my room. I printed those up and got my English teacher involved, a lovely grad student who luckily was a woman's advocate. She got her supervisor involved. My teacher started walking with me to my next class, all the way on the other side of the very large campus. He followed us the whole way, even when we made detours to the bathroom or to get coffee. Finally, the teacher had us write an ode to our favorite study spot. Kind of weird, but whatever. He wrote about sitting outside my door, how he felt powerful when he knew I was trapped inside, and even put my room number and other identifiable stuff in it. That ended up getting turned over to the university in addition to the song lyrics, and there was a whole hearing with myself, my roommate, and some others having to give statements. Unfortunately, they never told me what happened, but he wasn't at school the next semester. The next year, his roommate happened to be in one of my classes. Very first day, he comes up to me and says that there's no hard feelings for what you did to my friend. Next story. More than a delivery. A delivery driver dropping off a package at my job tried to follow me home. I passed him in the hallway as I was leaving. He just looked crazy off and gave me a really bad feeling. He was parked right out front, and by the time I got to my car, he was heading down the driveway to the street. He turned right, I turned left. I checked my rearview mirror just as he made a bad U-turn. I was on edge at that point, but didn't want to make any assumptions, so I decided to continue with my plans to stop at the store. He followed me 3 miles. When I parked, he parked a row away facing me. This just confirmed he was stalking me. I was very familiar with this super Walmart and knew they had many security cameras. I casually walked inside as he waited in his vehicle. Once inside, I ran to the manager's stand and told him what was happening. As I'm talking, crazy guy comes into the store looking for me. He guessed incorrectly that I'd gone down the main aisle on that side when in fact I was hiding next to the manager. The manager had an employee walk me to my car. Luckily, a police officer had just pulled someone over 2 rows away. I drove over there real fast. As I waited for the officer's help, I saw a crazy dude leave the store. He was looking for me but left when he didn't see my car. The officer just wrote down what I told him. The next morning, I reported the incident. It was escalated and I got a visit from the HSE, Health Safety Environment Director. Turned out he knew the owners of the delivery company and found out this guy had some major issues and lengthy criminal background. Crazy guy was taken off his route and I never saw him again. The HSE also made the local police department send an officer to take a statement. I was given tips on staying safe if it happened again. It didn't make me feel much better, mostly because the officer told me maybe the guy probably didn't know how else to get my attention. Like, what in the world? All I did was walk past the guy. We never spoke. I had to work on that secluded job site next to the woods another month after. It was creepy as anything being alone in that building at night after everyone left. I'd work until 11 p.m. some nights. There was no possibility of remote work back then. Ugh. Hi, I'm back again. I wonder if reintroducing myself in the middle of a compilation is a little bit odd, but it seems odder to me to go away for a day or longer or shorter and then come back and not say hello again, so you're kind of stuck with my strange way of compiling. This is going to be the 3rd story from Mink. That's a compilation of 9 stories from Mink about women and their stalker stories. This one's called Too Hot to Handle. This is like my story of the hot fireman. When my kids were younger, I was taking them to get their hair cut. As they drove past the fire station, a pickup truck pulled out of it. I think it said Fire Chief on the side. I then went down a busy street and one of my sons said, "Hey Mom, that fireman is totally checking you out." I looked over and sure enough, he was. And he was super attractive. Being a kind of tired-looking single mom, I felt really excited about this. It was nice getting checked out by an attractive guy. I looked away, but my kids kept saying, "Mom, he's still totally checking you out." Then he pulled behind me. I didn't think anything about that. Then I pulled off onto a side street, and he did as well. I still thought nothing. Then I pulled off onto another side street, and I was kind of weirded out when he followed, but who knows. There was a Canadian Tire on that street, so maybe he was going there. But then I pulled into the mini mall where the haircut place was. The only other stores there were a laser tag place, an aquarium place, a juice place, maybe a ladies' clothing store. He pulled in as well. We parked in front of the haircut place. He parked across the parking lot. A tiny part of me was thinking that he thought that I was so amazingly gorgeous that he was afraid to never see me again, so he was going to try and talk to me. But then the saner part of me was like, no way, this guy is a total freak. As we got out to go into the hair salon, he got out of his truck and just stood there staring at us. Then he got on his cell and was talking to somebody, but staring at us. I was able to keep an eye on him as my kids were getting their hair cut. At one point, he got back in his truck, but sat at the wheel, never taking his eyes off of the salon. When he came out, he started his truck. I pulled out and signaled that I was going left, but then at the last minute, I turned right. He turned left, so I hightailed it out of that neighborhood, taking as many odd turns as I could. Instead of going home, I took my kids out for lunch in a totally different area of town. I kept my eyes peeled the entire drive home. I lived a few blocks away from that fire station, but I never took that road down that way ever again. It was kind of a weird road anyway that I didn't generally take. And no, I never bothered to call and complain. If he had approached me or said something weird, then I may have called the cops. But at that point, I already had my angry ex-husband on an EPO, and I just couldn't handle any more drama. But yeah, so weird. It could have gone really badly if I had maybe approached him or was flirtatious. I could tell from the way that he stood staring at the hair salon. There was a rigidity that kind of looked like anger issue type stuff, so freaky. The next story is titled Keep the Change. Creepy dudes are really something. I had a similar problem, but luckily he wasn't just fixated on me. We mostly just tolerated him and told him to go away with varying degrees of success. He would actually usually cry first. But then one night he came into my room and announced. I was alone, so I was wearing nothing but a flannel shirt. He took it as an invitation and climbed into my bed and asked me to make love. I said, of course, no. And he took a bunch of quarters out of his pocket and he put them on my nightstand. Here, he said, I'll pay you. Look, you can do a load of laundry. Oh my. Everything else aside, that was really insulting, so I filed a joint complaint on behalf of the whole dorm. We collected his creepy notes and took screenshots and wound up getting him banned from our dorm. Not sure if it was an official restraining order, but a few years later he showed up at my work and tried to apologize. I simply said, I have a restraining order. I'm going to count to 10 if you're not gone. I'm calling the cops. He began to cry again, and he left. Last I heard, he was working at Papa John's. I don't think he graduated. I honestly feel really sorry for him, and I hope he got some help. But if I ever see him again, I'm probably going to kick him in the nuts. He had an emotional problem. Sometimes when you, people who, it could be, it's like an exaggerated, it's like, what's that called? A hysterical emotional problem where your emotions take over the moment of all of your emotions take over your cortex. So you're sane for a moment, and it makes you so giddy, so drunk in your head with your emotions that you follow through on the first thing that occurs to you, and you don't think through it. So that when you start thinking, it makes you emotional in the other sense of whatever was a giddy circumstance, and you never really see things any other way. It can finally drive you insane if you don't do that. I mean, people just go insane that way if you don't quit doing that, if you don't get help to quiet down that. It's like drunken emotion. I need to study things better. There's a whole technological process for, checking how your emotions run against your ability for reason, of course, in psychiatry. Right? But that is a thing. That your giddier emotions, just take over your cortex. I forget what it's called. I've actually read that and I don't remember. It's just drunken emotions, but it has a more technical name. Okay, we're just going to forget what I was saying. And this next one is kind of long, so I'm going to wait. I have very little time tonight, but I wanted to keep doing this because I want to get this posted sometime next week. Okay. Have good break time. I'll be back, of course. So I'm here to begin again after some break time. I am still pressed for time. I'm sorry. I have all sorts of small things to do that are time consuming. And so I haven't gotten... I'm sorry, my alarm went off while we were I started talking again. Anyway, why don't I just cut to the new day? So the next story out of the Mink compilation of 9 stories about women and stalker stories is titled He Knew I Knew. I don't drink, but I frequented the bar of my house pre-COVID just to meet my neighbors, so to speak. I knew almost everyone there. It's a small bar tucked in a shopping strip type thing behind a standalone restaurant. My friend who brought their dogs to the bar asks me to watch them while he runs into the bar to get a drink. While I'm watching his dog, a man I've never met before or seen at the bar asks me if the dogs are mine. I let him know they are not and that they are my friend's dogs. That's it. All I said. He walked away and I went about my business. 2 a.m. rolls around and the bar is closing. I say my goodbyes and head to my car parked on the other side of the Mexican restaurant out of sight of the bar. Dumb, I know, but there was no other parking. I'm sitting in my car looking for the right song when I feel someone watching me. It's the man who asked about the dogs, motioning to me from his car. I crack the window to hear what he wants because I'm not yet too scared, but I am cautious. He asks me, what am I about to do? Where am I going? Do I want to go home with him? Can he come home with me? To which I reply to all his questions, no, absolutely not. Now I'm on edge. I figure I'll let him back out and leave the parking lot first so he can't follow me. He doesn't. It's a stalemate. We are sitting there for way too long. The parking lot is becoming more and more empty, and I don't want to be left here with him staring at me through the window. So I pull out in a direction that I pull out behind his car and grab his plate number in my head. I keep repeating it over and over in my head, just in case. He pulls out behind me. We leave the parking lot and hit the first light. I tell myself not to panic. Anyone leaving this bar has to hit this light, and he could go any direction. He takes a left after me. Next light we come up on, I make it, though he doesn't. However, my turn for my neighborhood is right after that light, and he will see me turn in from there. So I keep driving, and luckily I live 2 more lights down from the police station for my district. I pull into the parking lot for a few minutes and turn back around and head to the gas station near my house to get gas for the morning. As I'm pulling into the gas station, he's pulling out. My luck, right? Should have waited longer. I pull into a parking spot and watch my mirror as he flips around and comes back to the gas station and pulls into the spot next to me. I'm already in reverse and I leave out the side entrance to the gas station and go down to the road I was just on. I'm waiting at the light to turn left, and I can see him at the entrance that meets the road I'm turning left on. He's just sitting there at the gas station exit waiting for me. He could have pulled out 1 trillion times. There were no cars. My lights turn green, and I make my left, and he pulls out in front of me and goes really slow. It clicked. He did this so I'd pass him, and it wouldn't be suspicious that he was following me because I'm the one that passed him, right? Wrong. I said, forget it. Let's go, dude, and passed him. I drive down the road using my turn signals each time I needed to drive nice and slow. Make sure not to lose him at any of the lights. I turn down a side street. He's behind me. I turn into the police station parking lot, look in my rear mirror, and watch him gas it down a 25-mile-per-hour residential neighborhood because at that point, he knew I knew. As soon as I parked, I cried my eyes out. Entire time I was calm, collected, and aware as I could be, but as soon as he was gone, I was a hysterical mess. A volunteer patrol officer, a retired police officer that still wants to be busy, found me and took me inside where I gave them the accurate license number and the make, model, and generation of his vehicle. They ran the plates and confirmed the plates met my description, so yay for my memory finally working for me. I was actually surprised about how the whole thing was handled. I was surprised they would do a report even though nothing illegal technically happened, I don't think. I'm surprised they didn't question if the hysterical woman crying uncontrollably was inebriated or lying. They even had a patrol car follow me to my house and wait outside for me to check each on of my rooms for an intruder. That's where it ends. So I guess hopefully that's the end of it. Wow, no more information. It's pretty scary how that happened. The next story, like the plot of Taken. I was studying abroad in Eastern Europe as a junior in college. One weekend, myself and 2 other girls in the program drove to the capital of Slovakia, Bratislava, to spend the day. We were strolling around the most touristy area of the city on a summer evening. It was peak dinner time in a walking district, so there were lots of people about, except on these little connecting side streets that would be mostly empty. While taking one such connecting street, we were excitedly gabbing away when all of a sudden I got that cliche but totally real feeling of hair standing up on the back of your neck. I suddenly realized there was a man walking beside us. He wasn't obviously suspicious, but he was only about 10 feet back, and I think my subconscious noticed he was maintaining that distance rather than trying to get around us. There was plenty of room, or us outpacing him. My fight or flight kicked in, but my gut said to be cool. I have no idea what one of my friends was saying, but I completely cut her off with a, "Hey guys, actually, let's go over here," and immediately turned 180 back the way we had come. I didn't look at my friends or anything, so don't know their reaction, but they went with it. As soon as we turned around, the man stopped. He was close enough, the three of us had to split to get around him, and as we did, he just stood there. Then after we passed, he turned around on the spot and started walking behind us again. The street led into a very large open square with a coffee shop nearby. Thankfully, the shop had a little outdoor seating and an empty table, so I speed walked up and plopped myself down facing out as my friends quietly took a seat too. To my astonishment, the man continued walking toward us, maintaining eye contact with me as he did so. It was at this point my friends noticed the man. My heart was pounding furiously, thinking there was going to be a confrontation, when at the last second he just passed by. The whole encounter was less than a minute, but I was shook, worried we had just dodged a taken storyline. A young waitress came out, and thankfully she spoke enough English for us to explain sort of what happened. She allowed us to sit a few minutes without buying anything to recover and make sure we didn't notice more funny business around us. We were on guard the rest of the night, but nothing else happened, and we never saw the man again. Part of me wonders if I was just being a paranoid weirdo, but the feeling that something was wrong was so random and powerful I can't blow it off as imagination. Unfortunately, we were broke and had to sleep in our car that night. Suffice it to say that we did not sleep well. That's really stirring. That has to be very upsetting. I truly believe that if she hadn't been on the ball with that, something could have honestly taken a wrong turn. He might have initiated something. That's spooky. Okay, the next story. Parking lot stalker. I was in Walmart looking at duffel bags. Some guy came up to me and asked me the time. I told him, and he thanked me, but continued to hang around. It was obvious he was pretending to look at things, just randomly picking them up and putting them down and looking at me from the side. It made me uncomfortable, so I grabbed a random bag and walked to another part of the store to get some toothpaste. I wandered around for a bit, paid, and walked to my car. I didn't see him after I left the double bag aisle, so I let my guard down as it was about 30 minutes later. I walked to my car, and as I was climbing in the driver's seat, the same guy appeared out of nowhere. This guy followed me around Walmart and out into the parking lot to my car. He put his arm on my open door and stood in front of me so I couldn't leave or close my door. He then proceeded to tell me how he thought my body was gorgeous and introduced himself. I simply stated, "I'm married." He responded with, "Well, let's make love." I continued to say no without trying to anger him. He kept saying how he thought my body was gorgeous and continued to ask if I wanted to sleep. After a few minutes, he eventually walked away. That entire situation terrified me because it could have gone a completely different way. Right, if he had been violent, right? Lucky to be alive. My story involves two creeps and one amazing person. This is the next story. I was visiting Berlin for the weekend with some friends, and we went to a fancy club. While we were there, this guy kept following me around and asking if I wanted a drink. He seemed normal and nice, so I said okay. He ended up buying a whole bottle of Jack and a whole bottle of Coke from the bar instead of letting the bartenders make the drinks. I, of course, watched him make the drinks to make sure he didn't roofie me and the friend I was with, but what I didn't think about was how much Jack he was putting in the drinks. They were probably 10% Coke and 90% Jack Daniels. We both got ridiculously inebriated because he kept pressuring us to drink faster and making more and more drinks for us. Eventually, it dawned on me that he was literally plying us with Jack, so I said to my friend, "We need to get out of here." So we left and started back to the hotel, but by this point, we'd gotten so incredibly inebriated that neither of us could walk properly. We tried hailing down taxis, and finally one pulled over. We got into the taxi, and it had three strange men in it. We told them where our hotel was, and they started driving. We were so inebriated that we didn't realize they were taking us in the wrong direction. Turns out they had been tailing us since we left the club because we were easy targets. I again realized what a horrible situation we had gotten into. The second they stopped at a red light, we got out of the car and booked it into a strange part of a strange city. It was definitely not a nice part of town, and the only thing open was a seedy bar, so we walked in asking for help. Luckily, a kind man saw we needed help and called us a cab. He knew what hotel we were talking about and came with us in the cab to make sure it wasn't another fake. That man most likely saved our lives, and I am grateful to him every day. When we did finally get back safely to the hotel, we found out the first creep at the bar had gotten another girl from our group super inebriated and had tied her up and took advantage of her. We missed several bullets that night. We were young and reckless, and I am so lucky it wasn't worse. That's all really terrible. Okay, but I'm out of time for tonight, and I'm going to continue this tomorrow. Have a nice break time. Well, I can't honestly believe this. There's only one story left in this compilation from Mink. So then I'm going to upload this voice recording, whatever it's worth to anybody. Okay. The last one is called Terrifying Walk Home. One time I was walking in my neighborhood. It was evening in the early fall, and I, living up north, the sun sets faster than you exist. Let me completely start this over. Terrifying walk home. One time I was walking in my neighborhood. It was evening in the early fall, and I was living up north where the sun sets faster than you'd expect. It was edited funny. That wasn't even my fault. A car pulled up next to me and said, "Hey, need a ride or something?" I said no and kept walking, but he rolled next to me trying to get my attention until a car pulled up behind him and he had to drive off. I thought I was in the clear, so I kept hurrying home. But he just pulled around the block and rolled next to me again, this time saying things like, "Come with me and I want to make love to you." I was 14 or so and didn't have a phone and couldn't see anyone else outside to go to for help, so I kept walking until another car made him pull away again. Worried he'd come back, I dashed down a side road and hid between some cars for maybe 10 minutes, hoping he'd give up and I could make it home. I was the kind of kid that always carried a pocket knife, so I opened it, slipped it up my sleeve in case I needed it in a hurry. If I was smart, I would have picked a random house and gone there for help, but the closed doors seemed just as scary as the guy in the car. A total nightmare. Eventually, I started heading home again and was half block from my house when guess who pulled up, but he didn't have more than a couple seconds before he had to move on for another car. I waited until he had rounded a corner before he ran the rest of the way home and got to the door safely locked behind me. That is a sad situation. You'd be very afraid of going back out without some way of having some security. Well, okay, well, that's it for this recording. And, I don't know, like a good panic button or something to push, of any kind, something to get you directly in touch with somebody immediately, that's going to be waiting on the other side for you. So it is 53 minutes long, just over that, and I'm going to post it and then get started on another one pretty soon, having no calendar for when that will happen or not to be completed. That way I think that I'll get things done. A very happy set of days until then. Whatever the days bring you, make them happy. My wish for everybody who's listening to me. Okay.